you guys want to refer back to this later or whatever, I will also share after. I will share the slides so that you have them. Because really what we're going to do today is walk through the steps of how to use Illuminate with the Lockdown browser so that you have a more secure testing environment if you want to test online.
He's already in the PD. So are all of us. We're all there with you. Hey, does it count that we all go if we just listen to Anthony? Counts, right? So do we stay in our PLC when we're here?
No.
Hey, we'll see you guys.
All right.
Bye.
So I don't know if that's Erica. I feel like that's Erica. Who am I hearing?
That was totally not me. That's Anthony Hurtado. I'm calling it out. Oh, that was not me. That's his group. I'm not with Anthony right now.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, welcome all of you guys. We're just getting started. So our goal today is to identify and implement the steps necessary to administer online tests with Illuminate and the Respondus Lockdown Browser. So I had looked into the Respondus browser to work with Canvas. And in my pursuit of that, I discovered that we already own the Respondus Lockdown Browser in conjunction with Illuminate. And so there were a lot of questions that came from the Sanger High Math Department about the capability of using these tools and, you know, what capacity did we have? Questions started coming out in the spring, maybe even before that. And I know that at WAMS, some of the teams are already using, they do online assessments for math. So we're going to talk about how those work together and how we can be more successful with online testing, especially in this environment now. So a couple things, benefits of online testing in the Lockdown browser. When you do the online testing in Illuminate, you'll see that many of the testing options are very similar to CASP. So if you want to prepare kids for CASP, have the benefit of online testing, but don't necessarily want to use always the IAB or ICA, then this would be an option for that. It also gives you the ability to deliver a test in a remote setting and then access to student testing progress. So you can do live proctoring. If any of you have done quizzes in Canvas, you have that same ability. So this is a different thing. When I met with Respondus over the summer and saw their like promo or demo lesson, one of the things that they want to make sure that everybody understands is that while the Lockdown browser will prevent students from using additional tools on the iPad, so like other apps or the camera, it isn't a foolproof method to prevent cheating. What I can tell you is that it's very much like the California Secure Browser used on the state test. So that works because we make sure that when students are testing that they don't have access to their cell phones or other devices, and so they're locked into the app or the site. Because we are in a remote setting now, we can't guarantee that a student doesn't take a screenshot with an alternate device. So I want to make that clear from the beginning. It's not 100% foolproof, but I do think that when kids know that there is a secure browser or that we are able to proctor a test, it gives an added level of security. Okay. Do you guys have any questions? If you have questions, please just unmute and shout them out or use the chat. I'm flying solo today, so I'm not monitoring chat. Any questions at this point?
The big question that our department had was, can we use the Lockdown browser and the cameras be on the student as they're taking the Lockdown browser? So has there been any discussion about the district office or like any guidance whether we can require like cameras on while they're testing?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of just like the ability that you can see in the
So it broke up a little bit, Devin, but I think what I heard you ask is if about a requirement or guidance about whether it's required. Is that what you said?
Yes. Can we require students to have their camera on all the time while they're taking?
Oh, camera on.
Camera.
Okay. Yes, sorry. Okay. So so the kind of method behind my madness is this. I feel like the next best step would be and I forget what the title of it is, but there is another level of security through Respondus that is kind of what you hear about more at the collegiate level, where students are required to have their cameras on and teachers can monitor them while they're testing. It is like an additional fee, but I think well worth it. I don't know. So there hasn't been talk about it. The reason that there isn't talk is because I would say that this is a secondary issue, probably more than an elementary issue. And while I have brought it up, I think the more that other people bring it up, the better. Forcible, like everybody needs to have their camera on thing. For a lot of different reasons. One of them is practicality, in the sense that for families that have been given the district MiFi, you might have multiple kids on a device or on multiple devices at the same time, and that creates an issue with bandwidth and things like that. That's one of the issues. But I would say as a teacher, you can say, you know, while we are doing this test, you are required to have your camera on. Nobody has said that you can do that. So while there hasn't been a rule that you have to, there also hasn't been a rule that says you can't require that. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but okay, I'm going to move on. So in terms of, okay, thank you, Nikki. Okay, let me see something. I'm gonna do something real quick, guys. I am going to turn my camera off and see if that helps a little bit. Guys, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Okay. So 2 things you're going to need for students to be able to access the browser. One is the actual app downloaded onto iPads. So this app, the student app, is accessible in the app portal. Students need to make sure that they've downloaded it to their apps. So if app portal or manager or whatever it's called for the freshmen now, but that needs to be downloaded onto the iPad. And then the access point is actually going to be Safari. And so I've given you the web address. Now on my iPad, I don't know how long ago this was done, but on my iPad, on my desktop, I have it looks like an app, but it's just a direct link to Sanger Illuminate HC. So that is the website that you need to, students would need to access to launch the portal where they can take the test. Now, the login information is student ID number, and then the password is student. Very secure. So I can say this though, and I'm gonna, Michelle, I shamelessly used your kids to check access points. Anybody who I know, I use their kids to check access points. I can tell you that for Jonathan it worked, and for Luke it didn't. That could have been my doing because I was a little bit clumsy as I was trying to get in. And I don't know if Dan Gross-Nicholas is here. I don't know if there's a way that we can make certain that the passwords are all the same. Mark's question, it works on Safari. So Chrome, to the best of my knowledge, the path in is make sure you have the browser installed, the Respondus Lockdown Browser, and then through Safari. We had, as a district, Respondus very briefly when we had as a trial run when we were first using Canvas. So this was like spring of 2019. And there might be some hiccup there that's preventing us from getting in with the app or whatever. Dan, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Well, what we're talking about is just the Respondus browser that Illuminate has partnered with to allow for that secure browser environment to be used. All the kids have that Illuminate app, or maybe they have a Clever that gets them to Illuminate, but the Respondus browser on the iPad only works if you go to Illuminate through the browser Safari. So yeah, definitely through the Safari browser, not the Illuminate app. So that was the big thing. We couldn't get it to work, figured out, oh, you have to go through the browser. So that was our big aha. And then a little bit later too, I can show you, or Rhonda can show you in Illuminate, all of you have full access to change student passwords in Illuminate. Real one-click area in the student lookup, and you have full access to change student passwords. That's why it's kind of hard to say that they'll all be with the default password of student. That was set up at the middle school level, so most of those kids coming in from the middle school will probably still have that unless one of their teachers changed it. So we'll have to figure that out as you go.
Yeah, I have a slide on that, and I would recommend that before you, you use this process, that you check and make sure that students can log in. But the good thing about Illuminate compared to a lot of our other systems is that you do have access to change the password, and I have a slide on that, so I'll explain how that works. Okay, all right. So, so once students have logged in to Illuminate, they'll have two options. The first image, continue portal or take assessment. So they'll select take assessment, and then they will select the appropriate assessment. And we'll talk about how you can indicate like testing windows and things of that nature. This is actually from Jonathan's portal, Michelle. So he's the one who I was able to use to get this access. Okay, here is the information on password reset. So within Illuminate, when you are logged into Illuminate, if you click search, you can search by student name or ID number, and then after selecting the appropriate student, you will be able to scroll down and find the portal password and be able to change the password. So you can't see what it is. Like, you can't just tell a kid their existing password, but you can change it immediately so that they have access. Okay, so that is a good thing. Okay, so the administering an online assessment. All right, so this is all going to be based on you having an active, not an active, but an online assessment. And so you can play with this. If you have a test that you have access to, you can play with this. It doesn't have to be like something that you could legitimately administer online. Any test that's in Illuminate, you can play with as if you would administer online. So the first thing you need to do when you're prepping to deliver an online assessment is find your assessment. You can click view assessments, you can search, but once you click on the title of the assessment, this box will pop up, and then you can click administer online, and then you would want to click test in portal. Okay, so online and then test in portal. And then within Illuminate, there are a multitude of settings from which you can choose to set up your administration. So you can set a testing window start and end date and time. So if you know that you're giving your your test during a particular period and you want to proctor that test, you can set that. And then, so that's the first window, is the assessment administration. Choose the testing window, date and time, and select your students. So all of these are, if you're familiar with Illuminate, and I know you guys are, drop downs, and you would just select the appropriate group of kids. Okay, and then the other tools within Illuminate get a little bit more complex. And so you can choose the parameters of the test, so the length of the test. You can determine if you want to allow or disallow student pausing. So if you want them to be able to pause during the test. And then you can also choose a constructed response method. So are they going to do an online entry, or are you going to have them write it on a different document? Note though that if you're going to have them write on a different document, it wouldn't be able to, if you're using the lockdown browser, it's not like they could switch windows. A written would be like handwritten in this case. Okay. You can lock out students by assigning a password availability here, okay, which isn't entirely necessary, but you could if you chose. And then this is the part that would activate the locked browser. So locked browser means they can only log in from a device that has the Respondus Lockdown Browser. Okay, it also asks you to add a password that you can give students if needed to unlock the browser. And I feel like with the California Secure Browser, we've had to do that before. Dan, I don't know if you have any information on that, but once you click Lockdown Browser Only, it will ask you to input a password. I would create a completely generic one that I would change from test to test, but it would be something that you could give students if for some reason they get locked out of everything.
Perfect.
Is that right?
Sounds good.
Okay. Good answer. Okay, and I remember doing that with the California Secure Browser in the early days of the California Secure Browser, so I'm pretty sure that's the same thing. Okay, questions. Anybody have any questions about the first two settings? Okay, I'm going to move on to tool settings then, and these are the ones that are much more like similar to what you would see on the CASP, some of the accommodations. So you have a lot to do with calculators, protractors, there's a spell checker, digital notepad, highlighting. Again, a lot of the things that you would see on Smarter Balanced type testing. You have the ability to fully enable or disable tools. And also you'll see in the far right, there is a use item setting option. And that would indicate that the tool can be set for each test question. So if you want them to use a scientific calculator on a couple questions, but not all, you can use the item setting, and that is enabled as you construct the actual test in Illuminate. Okay, so those first however many 5 have that option, and the bottom 2 with reference materials and the ruler. The others are just on or off. So a digital notepad, highlighting, dictionary, your strike through, you can either enable or disable those entirely. And then finally, the assessment review. So this allows you to decide if you'd like students to be able to review their performance on a test. You have the option to either allow them to see the correct answer. So if it's a true false and they mark true, okay, hopefully they can figure out that false was the answer. But if it's a multiple choice test and you don't want them to see the answer, you don't have to share it. But you have that option. You can enable when it is going to be active and disabled. So again, if you wanted to do it during a class period or give them a very narrow window, you have that option, okay? So those are the 4 assessment windows within Illuminate to help you set up the online test. All right. Any questions on those?
Rhonda, can we get a copy of this presentation, or at least if you
Yes.
send it to me, I can send it out to the
Yes.
department. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I will share it. I tried to take a lot of screenshots for step by step because I would want them to go back to as well. And these, all of the assessment tools, review, settings are all within the same window in Illuminate. You just scroll down and there's like a, drop down arrow to open each section. Okay, so the last part I wanted to talk about today was just managing online assessments and the ability that you have to manage the assessments once while students are taking the test or after the test is complete. So you can monitor active administrations within the test, and this is what that window looks like. It gives you the ability to edit. You can see the date that you've selected, the time window, the status, so it's current as opposed to pending or past, and then all of the other information. So Nikki, I stole you as a user and I borrowed Brianna's daughter as a student for this. So over here, these are the tools that I want to talk about. So student info and tools. So you can monitor with live proctoring, you can check student progress, and then the aggregate view, and I'll show you all three of those in just a sec. The first one is the student's view, and basically this just allows you to see by student individual progress. So what time they started, if or when they finished, the amount of time the test took, how much time they spent viewing, and the number of pauses if you have enabled pauses. I also want to point out up here, and we'll look more at the whole screen in just a second, but here is I don't know if you guys can read it. I know it's small. It says enable help. So if you enable help, that allows students to speak directly to you, but not out loud while they are testing. So if you enable help, a little box will pop up and it'll say, make sure that you are actively monitoring the test, because you wouldn't want somebody to reach out and ask for help and then you're not there to offer the help. So, but that's what the enable help means. You also have the ability to pause the test. Okay, so if you want to pause the entire test, if you realize, oh, question number 7, the correct answer isn't there, you can pause the test, address your students if needed, and then play the test again. Okay, down here is the aggregate view. So just another option where you can see a breakdown of the percent responded, percent correct. So again, just an active way to monitor the test, total started and total finished.
Rhonda, can I ask a question? Rhonda?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So if we're proctoring a test or giving a test online and we want our students to remain online, the second we put them in a lockdown browser, they're not going to be able to no longer be in our Google Meet or Zoom, correct? So that would be the only way to keep communication with them?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that is true. And then, and I don't know if Dan, this is we're trying to, so you guys can go on Illuminate, you can search, and there will be some tips about lockdown browsers and how they work. But to preserve the actual lockdown browser, there won't be any additional tools available to the kids. So you need to think about if you some people want them to show their work on a test, so that might be something that you would have to have them have a piece of paper and screenshot it after the fact or whatever. I don't know if that's an issue, but really they will be locked out of everything, including the Google Meet or the Zoom. Is that right, Dan?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, because that's my concern. So then there just we have to make sure we just keep some type of still door open, because if we put them in the lockdown browser and we see, it's going to show us there's 25 students in our class that are on, and we know we have 28. So we're going to be where's those other 3 students? They wouldn't be able to communicate now that they're locked in. So they would have to send us an email or remind
or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, the teacher's not locked down, so the teacher could still have a Google Meet open. So if the student's not able to connect, tell them, hey, I'll still be in the Google Meet. Join me. Or the Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
thank you.
Yeah, and that's why that enable help option is valuable, especially in this setting now. Okay. Question?
If I can real quick still. Yeah, so does that option only go live though once they enter the test?
Yes.
Okay, so once they're still logging in and going through all their, that's not going to be available until they're actually entered into the test.
Right. It's something that you would activate like during the live administration.
Okay, all right, thank you.
On this, is this going to be similar to CASP where the Air Secure browser doesn't work unless everything is closed first?
Yes, I believe that is the case.
So literally what we'll have to do, like teachers would have to meet on the Google Meet. Okay, I'm going to go and make the test live, and then they all have to get out and clear out all their windows and then get into the lockdown.
Yeah. So I would suggest that, you know, there is like not necessarily the day of the test, but prior to test administration, you have that somehow practice that with them. Because like even in the labs and stuff, when we would do tests in the labs, undoubtedly somebody had iTunes on, or it would pop up to do an update or something in the middle of testing. So you want to show them how they can, make sure that they're locked out of everything, or they're shut out of everything. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the danger for kids is what happens if they try to, I'm not 100% sure on this, but if they try to access another point, like another app or something during the test, what happens to their iPad? Does it lock them out?
We'd have to double check. We'll have to check on a couple of students and get some other apps open. I think the Lockdown browser is smarter than the CASP browser.
Okay.
I think it actually will just lock them into that app only and not allow them to do anything else until they're through and submit that test. So just accessing that test kind of locks it up, so they don't have access to get unless they get out of that, unless they quit the test.
Okay.
Or submit the test. We'll have to test that part for sure.
Okay. I do remember reading something about this specific lockdown browser, that if they tried to like exit before completing the test, there are multiple warnings that come up. Like so they're aware that they are leaving the active test and they won't be able to get back in, or there's like they would have to go through their teacher to get back in, kind of thing. Okay, so this is some information about just the live proctoring. So these are all screenshots from what that active screen looks like. So you now you can easily pause your assessments using the pause button, which we talked a little bit about earlier, pause and play. And so that is an option. And this is what the live proctoring screen looks like. So you can see the name of your student. And this was a brief write. So there were only 2 responses, but you can filter by student or by question if you wanted to monitor questions as a student is taking the assessment. You can click on the 3 dots next to any student, and these are the options that appear. So you click the 3 dots for individual student options. So you can force pause a test, you can force finish a test, and so those are your options with individual kids. Over here, you guys see the little, I think, the official term is pancake, these 3 little lines. That's going to pull up a bunch of access points for the assessment as well. And these are just different ways to filter. Okay, but that's what the live monitor or the live proctoring screen looks like. And then again, that pancake, the 3 horizontal lines on the far right, opens this tool to give you additional options. So you can look at previous administration, student list, again, the aggregate view. This is what the very first 2 options I showed you. So it takes you to some of those from this screen. You also can force force finish an assessment. So if you have a kid who, for whatever reason, it's kind of like a Google Meet, if you've ever had the person left after everything is done and you need to force finish the assessment, you can do that from here. Okay, so these are all of the options that you will see on your live proctoring window. Okay. All right, questions?
What if, like, for RSP kids that are taking it with a RSP teacher, where they, especially if it's online, are having to meet with them live? How would that, with them being a lockdown browser, that'd be hard for them to communicate with their teacher? That might have to have questions read to them.
Right, and I don't know. Again, so the thing with the lockdown browser is, even, there's test security on an individual device, but I don't know that that's, you might want to exclude your SPED kids from that online administration, or don't select the lockdown browser for those kids. That would have to be like a case-by-case individual thing. So when you go to the screen where you select your kids, you can select like your entire group of your entire class, or you can select by students. So you could exclude those students. You could still do online administration, but perhaps they're not using the lockdown browser so that they can have the test read to them. I also don't know what the circumstances are now with cohorts, or if that's, maybe they have to test on a different day and they could test in person. So I know that's not a fantastic answer, but it's going to go on a case-by-case basis, I'm guessing.
There's a question in the chat, Rhonda. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so Justin's question. So there isn't a camera. Okay, so yes, there is an additional feature. It's actually from Respondus that could be integrated that has the camera feature. I don't recall off the top of my head what it's called, but it's very much intended for, let me say it this way. I think it's been used more at the collegiate level. So my son is 25 and has recently taken college classes, and in some classes there is the camera feature, right? The teacher has activated the camera feature. It's used a lot with Respondus, like Blackboard uses Respondus too. And so it's the camera monitoring them while they're testing. Again, it's kind of a deterrent, because are the teachers really actively watching however many students are taking the test, or is it just the knowledge that the camera's on that prevents people from cheating? But that is an additional cost to connect. So here's my thing. I want to make sure that we, Sanger Unified, are able to provide teachers with what they need as much as possible. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things we need, and right? But if we're actively using this, right? If we're actively using this system, which I don't know that it has been actively used, and we say, we really want to continue using this, but we need this added level of security, then I don't think that's a hard sell, right? We just bought a district license for a plagiarism detector, and I can see how many people are using it, how many documents get processed on a daily basis. So it's like the proof is there, it's being used. So if we're actively using Illuminate, the Respondus browser, then I think the next step is very natural if it's something that you guys see that would be needed. Okay, and that's why I say it has to come from you. So like, department chairs, CSPs, Michelle, Davin, like if your departments are actively using this, then I say we go all in. Okay, but let's see how it works first before we go, thousands of dollars in. Nikki, I see you have a question.
Not so much a question, it's just I was thinking about the question from earlier. I don't know.
You can't, in Illuminate, there can be a co-administrator of a test. So you know that when you create a test in Illuminate, you can share it with, by grade level, department, different people at your site. You can also create, you can add a co-administrator for an online test. So that might be an option. I honestly don't know anything about it, so it'd be something to play with totally, but it's a great idea.
Well, because I was thinking like, if we just, we don't all have necessarily always the same case manager, but if it is your situation and you do, or you know who your case manager is, if you make them one of the people that has that gets it shared to them, then they have it and they can administer it. They can do all the things for their SPED student. It doesn't even have to be like co-administrator, like at the same time that I'm giving it, but like during their CAP skills class, they can take the assessment or something else if they have those permissions.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that works. And it is one of the things that I noticed last night, and I was like, oh, cool. But I didn't really think about the extent of the use of it, but there can be a co-administrator. Okay, Anthony's question. It is that easy. So if when you are setting up the online administration, if students have the app on their iPads, they log into Illuminate using Safari, and you have indicated that on the test they are going to use the lockdown browser only, then that's how it works. So it isn't like they have to go through the lockdown browser. It automatically activates as long as it's downloaded on the iPad. And so it is, I have my iPad. I was told that for Sanger High School, it is the Respondus browser is in there. A week and a half ago, I emailed our tech department to make sure that was the case for 7 through 12, because I know that the WAMS math department is interested in using it as well. And they've actually used the online testing, but they're interested in the lockdown browser part of it. And so we're adding that component. So I'm not 100% certain that the lockdown browser has been added for WAMS, but I've already requested that it's accessible 7 through 12. We're also trying to maybe get apps just kind of everywhere, so we don't have to like look under rocks for them and see where they are and they aren't. So, okay, other questions or ideas or concerns? Okay, so when I started exploring the lockdown browser, I was exploring it within Canvas before I discovered that it was already accessible in Illuminate, that we already have that capacity. So depending on how this works, Respondus does work within Canvas as well, or it could. We have to pay for that additionally, but I think it's a great opportunity to explore within Illuminate. If that's a system that some of you already use anyway, we have access to that. We pay for Illuminate. So I am really eager to hear how it works once you start using it. I'm really eager to hear how it goes. I want to hear all the mess ups. I would love you to try more than once if the first time it fails. Okay, because I think, just like with any system, there are going to be successes and failures, but we need to work through those to see how we can improve it and if it's a viable tool to use with other platforms. Okay, so please, I shared my email. I will share this presentation. I'll share it with department chairs so that everybody has access. And you can go back and review. But if there are no more questions, I just want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate, there are 20 people here because I was like, grades are due today at the high school. There's no way anybody's going to come to this. I imagine you guys are probably stressed about other things. So I really appreciate that you took the time to come today and to learn about this. And I'm really happy. I know math department, I know you guys have been wanting this for a long time. So I'm glad that we could kind of see it through and hopefully get it up and running for you. All right. So thanks, guys. Have a fantastic Monday. Wish me luck with the mosquitoes and the restroom situation here. And thank you. Have a great day. Bye.